This is the Ramana Maharshi Satsang. I'm reading and commenting on Yoga Vasishta. Listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself. Welcome. This is Richard Clarke. Yoga Vasishta is a text that was loved by Sri Ramana Maharshi. I'm not a teacher or a guru, just someone sharing teaching that I love. The Yoga Vasishta is one of the great classics of Advaita Vedanta. It teaches of the illusion of the world, the self, and liberation. The first chapter is Dispassion, and we're doing verses 9 through 12. If sages were concerned solely with their own happiness, with whom could those tormented by the sorrows of samsara seek refuge? That which is imparted, O good soul, to a worthy disciple who has become dispassionate is the real wisdom. It is the real purport of the sacred texts and is also the comprehensive wisdom. Following the customary method of teaching is only for preserving the tradition. Pure awareness results solely from the clarity of the disciples' understanding. The Lord cannot be seen with the help of the sacred texts or the Guru. The self is seen by the self alone with the pure intellect. So let's go through these verses. Verse 1:9. If sages were concerned solely with their own happiness, with whom could those tormented by the sorrows of samsara seek refuge? Vasishta reminds us that the compassion of the enlightened beings is not separate from their wisdom. A sage who has realized the self naturally radiates peace and clarity and serves as a refuge for those caught in delusion. Their guidance doesn't come from obligation, but from the spontaneous expression of the self's nature, which is pure awareness and compassion. The sage's happiness is not a private possession. It's universal, like sunlight that falls on all. Through their words, examples, and presence, those still in ignorance find the way inward towards freedom from sorrow. You're encouraged to see that enlightenment does not isolate you from others. True wisdom naturally expresses itself as compassion. You see others as not different from yourself, so compassion is natural. When you abide in the self, your being becomes a silent teaching that eases the suffering of others. Helping does not come from effort or personal intention, but from stillness and clarity. Vasishta points to a place where serving others and resting in the self are the same. This verse calls you to recognize that awakening is not withdrawal, but participation in the world through peace and understanding. With your participation naturally comes compassion towards everyone. 110. That which is imparted, O good soul, to a worthy disciple who has become dispassionate, like Steve, is the real wisdom, the real purport of the sacred text, and is also the comprehensive wisdom. Vasishta makes clear that the highest truth can only be taught to and absorbed by a mind free from craving and restlessness. Dispassion purifies the mind, making it fit to receive experiential knowledge that cannot be grasped by the intellect alone. Sacred texts and teachings point towards the same reality, but only when your mind has turned away from worldly attachments can the true meaning awaken within you. Real wisdom is not information. It is direct recognition of the self, direct experiential knowledge which transcends both teacher and scripture. The worthy disciple is one who is ripened through reflection, sincerity, and surrender. You're invited to see that spiritual maturity is measured not by study, but by the quieting of desire. The only desire that remains okay is the desire for realization. When you have lost interest in what is fleeting, real wisdom comes on its own. Vasishta reminds you that truth cannot be given. It reveals itself when the mind is ready, when the mind has become pure, steady, and dispassionate. The scriptures find fulfillment not in memorization, but in realization. This verse calls you to prepare your heart for silence, where all words meet their source in pure awareness. 111. Following the customary method of teaching is only for preserving the tradition. Pure awareness results solely from the clarity of the disciple understanding. Vasishta strips away dependence on ritual or tradition as the source of awakening. Formal instruction may preserve sacred heritage, but liberation comes only when you directly know the truth. Pure awareness does not come from some method or technique, but from direct recognition. When your self-knowledge is firm, all outer forms fall away. The teacher and teaching serve as mirrors until your own insight and inner light shines unobstructed. Then you don't need a mirror anymore. The true guru is within, the light of your own awareness that reveals itself when confusion ceases. Tradition feeds remembrance, but freedom comes through direct experience, not through repetition. You're reminded to rely on your own inner clarity rather than external forms. You know what is true. The value of any method lies only in whether it helps to dissolve ignorance. When you understand through direct knowledge, awareness stands alone, free from dependence on teachings or teachers. Vasishta urges you to trust your own insight once it ripens in silence. This verse invites you to respect tradition, but to rest finally in the self, where no teaching remains, only truth itself. And 112. The self cannot be seen with the help of the sacred text or the guru. The self is seen by the self alone with the pure intellect. Vasishta declares that realization cannot come through any intermediary, not through any indirect knowledge. Neither scripture nor teacher can reveal the self because the self is already ever present and self-luminous. The pure awareness, silent, transparent, and unclouded by thoughts, becomes the mirror in which the self recognizes itself. Words and concepts can only point to this seeing. The true knowledge of the highest is not perception of an object, but the awakening of your own being as pure awareness. When the mind is stilled and the sense of separateness dissolves, the self stands revealed by itself, in itself, as itself. You're reminded that realization is direct and intimate. No book or teacher can substitute for self-knowledge. When your intellect becomes pure through inquiry and stillness, the truth reveals itself effortlessly. Vasishta points you towards self-recognition as the highest form of devotion. Seeing the highest means knowing that there is no other to be seen. All striving ends when the seer and the seen merge in the radiant awareness that you are. This verse calls you home to the immediate presence of the self. Vasishta's teachings across these verses points you towards inner maturity, compassion, and direct self-recognition. He reminds you that true wisdom comes from dispassion, clarity, and inner stillness, not from scripture or ritual. When the mind is pure, the self reveals itself effortlessly, shining as the only refuge and the only truth. Now we have a video, a Satsang talk by Nome on detachment and knowledge.
Sri Bhagavan declares that vairagya and jnana are one and the same. Vairagya means detachment or dispassion, while jnana means knowledge or wisdom. They are the same in essence and in their very substance. And they are the same in the principles, if I can call them such, by which one realizes their significance. Detachment is bliss. To the degree that one is detached, one revels in bliss. The movement of the mind, confused about the nature of happiness, that manifests as attachment, is done for the sake of happiness, but brings about precisely the opposite result. It is because in attachment one looks outwardly for what is inward, to the non-self for that which is actually the self, bliss. It is the outward motion that seems to cast a curtain over, a veil over, the innate bliss. That outwardness is based on the false assumption of individuality, which is hence deficient in happiness, and the securing thus of that happiness from something. When we turn within, recognizing the source of happiness to be within, we get swallowed up, as it were, consumed in the bliss of our own nature. Then there is nothing more to be desired. In fact, Sri Bhagavan says both the desires and the aversions are done away with. One remains in waveless bliss. It is a shoreless ocean of bliss. A vast expanse of bliss that is identical with one's very being. The same holds true regarding knowledge. Indeed, self-knowledge is bliss. Knowledge is detachment, detachment from the unreal, from the non-self. And knowledge is bliss. Knowledge is consciousness. That which is referred to as being and as bliss is also consciousness. Satchidananda, being, consciousness, bliss. If one bases his knowledge, so-called, on the unexamined false assumption of individuality, what does he really know? He can say, I know this, but what does he know? He can say, I don't know this. What is it that he does not know? The attempt to secure a knowledge of what is, that is, of reality, when overlooking one's own nature, is silly, pointless. It results only in dreams, illusions. For the steady, blissful knowledge of reality, you have to know yourself. Yet yourself is not an object to be conceived or be perceived. There is a verse in Saddarshanam that pertains to this. The verse reads like this, translated from the Sanskrit. I know not me, or I know me. Thus expressions of man are to be laughed at. From the difference of the seer and the seen, is this self divided in two? The oneness of oneself, that is, the true self, indeed, is the understanding that there are no differences. Your existence is one, utterly indivisible. So how is it possible for anyone to be ignorant of himself? That would require at least two. Or how would it be possible for someone to think of himself? That again would require two. Ignorance and knowledge so-called do not pertain to the self. Thought and forgetfulness do not pertain to the self. Inquiring into your own self without giving rise to the ideas, I know me, I don't know me, but inquiring into the very nature of your essential existence. You yourself in your own being shine as the knowledge called self-knowledge. Just as in detachment, in complete detachment, you yourself shine as the bliss that is entirely free. So with complete inquiry to know who you are, you shine as the supreme knowledge, which is blissful and free. Differences are a product of delusion, that is, they are born of imagination and have no reality at any time. The unborn truth, the differenceless, uncreated reality, is as it is forever. Of all differences, the first to be imagined is the assumption of individuality. I. From that single assumption, for that assumption, in that assumption, appears the imagination of all difference, including every kind of misidentification and every kind of attachment. Who am I? What is the very nature of I? Your own self. Certainly it is not a body. And just as certain is it that it is not a thought. It is no kind of person whatsoever. Inquire and know the differenceless nature of your very existence, your very consciousness, your very bliss. Knowledge, formless, not a possession to be gained or lost, such as I know it, I do not know it, but rather the ever revealed, the self-luminous, is abidance as the self. With utter detachment toward all the unreal, with profound knowledge of the non-objective truth. Abide in the self as the self.
And now we will spend a few minutes and inquire. You exist. You exist, and you know that you exist. Inquire. Investigate within yourself. Can I notice compassion rising naturally when I rest as pure awareness? How can I deepen dispassion so that true wisdom reveals itself within me? What happened when I stopped seeking authority outside myself and trust the clarity within? When I rest in pure awareness, who or what is there to seek or to find? Who am I when I dismiss all roles and identities? What am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And we'll close with a chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. What did you get from today's session?
Well, in pure awareness, there's no outward or inward. There's no body, no individuality.
Yes, no boundary, no edges.
No, only that pure awareness that reveals itself to itself.
It doesn't take two.
No, I thought it was interesting. Stephen was talking about reaching a new stage of dispassion within himself, and that was a lot of what today's session was about.
Yes, that's the clearer distinction on detachment. Yeah.
And the Vasishta was saying detachment is joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nome said, in attachment, one looks outward for what is within.
Right, right. That's the fundamental error.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed having you all get together today and have good meditations and good inquiry. And I'll see you next week. Namaste.
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 Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you, community.
You. Namo Ramanaya.